Welcome back everyone to a new video. In this video I thought I would discuss another top 10 video talking about my top 10 favorite Resident Evil games, from what I like about these games, from gameplay to story to the characters, all that type of stuff. Just thought I'd talk about my top 10 favorite Resident Evil games because I've been thinking about Resident Evil a lot and I thought, why not make a top 10 list? Haven't done one in a while, so let's do it. So let's go ahead and transition to the list and start with number 10. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so to start off the list at number 10 is none other than Resident Evil 5. Resident Evil 5 was a really good game for co-op. With co-op it was a fun game. If you play it alone, not so much, which is why it's at number 10 for me. This was one of the main entry numbered games in the series that really I wasn't that big on. I played it one time and never really touched it again until it came back out on PS4, and then I played it with my brother on co-op, and it was a lot funner in co-op mode. However, I will say I think this game still has the best Mercenaries mode, and it's not even close. Like, Resident Evil 5's Mercenaries mode, really good. I loved playing as STARS Wesker, so had a lot of fun with the Mercenaries mode. But as far as the main game, it was okay, wasn't great, and that's why it's at number 10 for me. Just because, I think other Resident Evils had a better story and things of that nature. And I mean, this game killed off Wesker when he was really just getting started. I mean, other than this game, Wesker's really just been behind the scenes. He hasn't really done anything except for be the guy behind the scenes. So the first game he comes out, he gets killed in. Come on, really? Still, it is a good game, and that is why it is in the top 10, because it is a good game. And not too much I could say about it. The boss fights are pretty decent. The AI, I know, can be a little buggy to some people, but I never really have too many problems with it. But I always did have a little bit of an issue with ammo, because anytime I'd get to the final fight with Wesker, I'd run out and have to knife him to death. But other than that, it's an okay game, and it's at number 10 for me. And that's pretty much all I can say about it. I mean, it's number 10. It's not anything crazy, although I do like the side quest with Jill and everything, Lost in Nightmares. That's good. But number 10, let's just move on. Alright, so at number 9 we have none other than Resident Evil 0. To me, this is a very underrated game. It feels like a really good Resident Evil game. It looks like a really good Resident Evil game. It's got the same feeling of Resident Evil 1 Remake. The only real major problem with the game is the 2-character control system. That's the only real problem with it. Other than that, it's not that bad of a game. I mean, item boxes would have been nice, because having to drop items, even though it is more realistic, can be a little frustrating when you drop an item far away from where you are and now you gotta go all the way back for it. I think it would have been nice if that was in there, or have both options. Have the ability to drop items if you want to, but also have the item box if you want to use it. That would have been nice. But regardless, the game itself is a really good game. The best part of the game, unfortunately, is the very beginning when you're in the train. That to me is the prime of the game, because it's the most unique. Once you get to the research facility, it feels kind of too much like Remake, like you're in the Spencer's Mansion. But the train is awesome. I love the train. I mean, it's one of my favorite locations. In my last top 10 video with Resident Evil, I think I had the train up there somewhere close to the top 5. I mean, it was a really good setting. I really did enjoy it. But the rest of Resident Evil 0, it does feel a bit like Remake, but it's still a really good game, and I'm hoping Billy Cohen makes a comeback one of these days. We got Rebecca Chamber back in Vendetta, the CG film, but hopefully Billy Cohen will make a comeback somehow. This game had a couple things that I didn't like as far as bosses. The giant bat wasn't that great. The original Tyrant was okay. And I hate the Leech Men. Those guys suck as enemies. But still, it's a good game, and it deserves to be in the top 10 and needs to be recognized a little more because it's sort of underrated. But there you have it. Number 9, Resident Evil 0. Let's move on to the next one. Alright, so at number 8, we have the fan favorite Resident Evil 6. Now I know this is actually a very unpopular opinion. A lot of people do not like Resident Evil 6 because it's action oriented, which I really don't understand, because Resident Evil 4 is also action oriented, but it gets put on a pedestal all the time as the #1 Resident Evil game. So I'm not really sure why Resident Evil 6 gets so much hate for doing pretty much the same thing. But anyways, to me, Resident Evil 6 is a very good game. I love all the character interactions, from Leon squaring it off with Chris, Ada, saving Sherry and Jake. You got Sherry back in the game since Resident Evil 2. Lots of cool things happen in this game. The bosses are really cool. You got Hayos that Chris and Pierce have to go up against. I think it's Yusanak, or what, I don't even know how to pronounce its name, but the tyrant that Jake and Sherry have to fight. And then you've got Simmons that that Leon and Helena go up against. He's one of the coolest bosses ever, because he reminds me a lot of William Birkin, who is my favorite boss in all of Resident Evil. Simmons reminds me of William Birkin with the multiple mutations, never dying, he just keeps coming back. So I really like Simmons as a boss. And then there's also Carla Ramsey, the fake Ada Wong that Ada will go up against in her campaign. So the bosses in this game are really good, and I enjoyed every minute of it. I do wish that at least one of the campaigns was more horror centric. Since you had 4 campaigns, you would think they could at least make one of those centered around survival horror and have the other 3 be action. But regardless, it's still a good game, and even the Mercenaries mode was okay. I still think Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 5 have a better Mercenaries, but other than that, it's a good game, and I'm going to put it at number 8. So let's go ahead and get ready to move on to 7. Alright, so at number 7 we have a bit of an upset, as I'm going to be putting Resident Evil 2 Remake at number 7. To me, this is a very good remake. It looks great, it plays great, everything about it is a really good game, but in my opinion, the 6 that are ahead of it are just still better. This game was fun to play, both Leon and Claire's campaign. Now, I made the stupid mistake of playing it on hardcore mode first round, so it was very frustrating at times because I didn't know what to expect, but other than that, very good game. My only problem with it, and the reason that it's at number 7, is there are a few things that I wish were different. I don't like the way that Chief Brian Irons was changed up. I wish they had kept him more like his original self, where he's seems like a good guy at first, but then slowly you figure out the truth of Irons and that he's a bad guy. I wish that Ben didn't get killed off so quickly when you find him. I wish that didn't happen. I wish the Ada and Leon, meet scene was like the original, because that's one of my favorite moments in Resident Evil. I wish the liquor was introduced in the same, format with the cutscene and everything. So there's a few things like that that I wish would have happened, but this game is still really good. I love that they added more to Ada and Sherry's gameplay, and it wasn't just them pushing crates. To me, that's great. I love that. I love the character models of this game. I love Mr. X, that he is now, actually within the game and not just pre-programmed in certain areas. But I do kind of wish he didn't show up so much, because then he becomes kind of predictable and not scary. So I wish that was something that didn't happen so much, but it's still a really good remake, and they did a fantastic job with it. Can't wait for RE3 remake. But, really good game, and a lot of good extra content too. So number 7, here we go. Alright, so at number 6, we have none other than the original 1996 version of Resident Evil, the game that started it all. Yeah, this game doesn't have the nice graphics that the modern games have, and it has by far the worst voice acting in the series, not even a competition. But this game is still a really good game. It's fun to play. It feels the most like Resident Evil, except for maybe Resident Evil Remake, and that's because it's the exact same game, just remade. When you think of Resident Evil, Spencer Mansion is probably the first area that you might think of. It is for me. So I enjoy this game still. I love the, color palette of this game because it's just so crazy. I mean, you can go in one hallway and it just be completely bright red, and another one be bright yellow. Very odd choices for the design of the Spencer Mansion in the first game, and I love it. I love a lot of the puzzles in this game, and there's a few things that I like about this one more than even the original or more than the remake, such as the fight with Jan, the giant snake. The original 1996 version is such a better fight, because in the second round against Jan, you're in a empty room with nothing there, and it's just a fireplace, and that's awesome because it makes it more of a challenge. Whereas in the remake, there's a bookshelf that you can run around to keep, away from Jan. So something like that makes this a better one. But, things like the director's cut, they messed up the whole soundtrack and everything, but still, I think this is a really good game, and if it wasn't for this one, we wouldn't have any of the others. But there is a lot of charm and nostalgia for it to be this high, won't lie about that, but I still think it's deserving. Let's move on to number 5. Alright, so to kick off the top 5 is none other than Resident Evil Revelations. I absolutely love this game. It's really awesome. The Queen Zenobia, like I've said, is one of my favorite locations. It's such a good spot for a survival horror game. And Jill Valentine is in it, which Capcom, you need to bring her back. It's been a really long time since she's been in the games, especially in the games timeline. In the games timeline, it's been like 10 years or something like that since she's made an appearance. So you got to bring Jill back for Resident Evil 8. But anyways, back to the game. Revelations is a really good game. Its only really big weakness to me, and the reason it's not higher up, is that it transitions from survival horror to action horror way too often. You will be in the Queen Zenobia in a dark area location one chapter, and then the next chapter you'll be in Terra Grigia with Parker and Jessica from a flashback shooting a bunch of hunters. It's insane how wishy-washy it is, and it doesn't know what genre it wants to be, and that's why it's not at number 5. If this game was only in the Queen Zenobia and you were only playing as Jill and Parker the whole time, this would probably be a top 3 game for me because it's that good. I also do wish that the ooze creatures were a little more unique and didn't all kind of look the same, minus 1 or 2 arms looking different. That's something I kind of wish was a little different, where the enemies slightly different. But other than that, this game's amazing. Rachel is a freaking creepy boss that you have to fight. One of the creepiest bosses since Lisa Trevor in the first Resident Evil remake. So really love the game, and I would love to see another game featured in an abandoned ship sort of thing, or maybe even a submarine. Let's have it take place in a big submarine deep underwater. But anyways, that is Revelations, number 5. Now let's move on to number 4. Alright, so at number 4, we have Resident Evil 3. This is a very great game, and hopefully we will see RE3 remake in the near future now that RE2 has been remade. That being said, let's talk about the original. This game is lots of fun. You've got Jill Valentine once again as she tries to escape Raccoon City and avoid Nemesis, one of the most famous tyrants in the franchise. Really like this game for the introduction of the scenario option, where you can choose 2 different scenarios. Like, for example, one of the very first ones that you get is when Nemesis first shows up, you can either fight Nemesis or you can choose to escape into the police station. I really like this because whatever choice you make alters, what happens throughout the game. So that's really cool. And I really like the pre-rendered backgrounds and fixed camera angles of these earlier games, especially with this game, because in Raccoon City there's so much detail. You've got garbage on the ground, you've got shattered and crashed cars, you've got all sort of cool things that are happening as far as detail. So I like the detail of it, and it's a really fun game. Nemesis is great. He's got cool mutations, lots of stuff that I do enjoy about this game, and hopefully, like I said, we'll get a remake of it. But let's go ahead and move on to number 3. Alright, so at number 3, I have placed Resident Evil 4 in this spot. This is a great game, fantastic. To this day, the majority of the fan base still has it at number 1. Although I personally do not understand that, because this is still the game that introduced the action aspect of it, the same element that people hate on Resident Evil 6 for, yet put Resident Evil 4 at number 1. That being said, this is still a great game, and that's why I have it at number 3. I enjoyed the village and the castle the most, castle being the best part of the game because of Salazar, the interactions. I love his right-hand man. That boss fight is really intense when you first play the game because he's so quick and just indestructible that you have to use those little hydrogen tanks. So he's a cool boss. Salazar, like I said, fun interactions. A lot of cool things happen in the castle that I enjoy. Wish the castle was larger. The problems that I had with the game were things like the island was just way too rushed in my opinion, because you fight Krauser in the knife fight scene and then moments later you fight U3, the It Will Keep You Busy enemy, and then after that you fight Krauser again with only a couple of Gondos in between those boss fights. So it's like boss fight back to back to back. So the island was definitely rushed, and I wish Luis Serra would have made mercenaries mode. I mean, they just kill him off and they don't even give him mercenaries mode. They give it to Hunk, because that made plenty of sense. Overall, the Resident Evil 4 is a very great game, and for it to still be number 1 on so many people's list is quite a feat, because lots of games have come out in this franchise that you could argue are better. But anyways, that is Resident Evil 4 for me. Putting it at number 3. Let's go ahead and move on to number 2. Alright, so at number 2, we have Resident Evil 2, the original, from 1998. I absolutely love this game. It is still by far one of the best in the franchise. Resident Evil 2 to me has the best soundtrack in the franchise, without question. Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 3 are close contenders, but Resident Evil 2 still takes the cake for me. I love the soundtrack in this game, and I'm glad that the remake added that in there, because that is one of the best things about the remake, is that it kept the original soundtrack as an option for the deluxe buyers. But this original game still is so fun. I've played Leon and Claire's campaign so many times. I enjoy it. The Ada Leon interaction, the way they first meet, I love that. She shoots at him, mistaking him for a zombie. It's a great scene right there, to kick off the connection that will be throughout the series. So that was really cool. Chief Brian Irons is executed much better, and William Birkin is my favorite villain in the franchise, and Leon is my favorite character in the franchise. So you put those two in the same game, and it's like, this has to be at the top, right? So this is an excellent game. I love the detail in it, just like I love Resident Evil 3's detail due to the fixed camera angles and pre-rendered backgrounds and everything. Resident Evil 2 is just a fantastic game, and even when Resident Evil 3 or Resident Evil 2 remake was announced, I wasn't exactly sure that it would beat this one, because we've had 20 years to grow on this one. So it was going to be a tough call for it, and as you can see, it didn't cut it for me, as Resident Evil 2 1998 version sits at number 2 for me. Great game, great mutations with William Birkin, fun gameplay, because I prefer, fixed camera angles. But that's just me. I'm putting Resident Evil 2 at number 2. Now let's get ready to move on to number 1 on my list. Alright, at number 1 we have Operation Raccoon City. Need I say anything else about it? I mean, just look at it. Alright, let's move on to the actual number 1. It's not this. Okay, so at number 1 we have Resident Evil Remake. The original Resident Evil remade is the best Resident Evil in my opinion. It still looks so good to this day, and I'm talking about the GameCube version. I mean, the HD remasters, of course, they look amazing, but even the GameCube version still looks really good to this day. I love this game's, soundtrack. It sounds great. I love the things that they added, like the defense systems, like the grenade and the dagger. Crimson Heads were a great addition. Lisa Trevor, a creepy, awesome addition to this remake. I like the new locations that they added from the original. You know, so many cool things were added that the original didn't have. This game just has so many things about it. And I prefer this type of remake. I prefer a remake that is pretty much the same as its original, with improved graphics and a couple new things here and there, such as enemies and a few new locations, versus what Resident Evil 2 remake did with the whole re-envision of things. This is what I'm more into. I like this more. And that's why this game to this day is still #1 for me. Such a good game. And I gotta play Chris's campaign here soon as an LP, just because I haven't done that one yet. It's been almost a year ago, so expect that to be coming around here very soon. Chris's campaign. The bosses in this game, I love them. I love Yawn, Planet 42, the Tyrant, Neptune. All the bosses in this game are awesome. You get to play as Rebecca. I mean, so many cool things about this game that I love. Lots of nostalgia, won't lie, lots of nostalgia. But I think this game deserves this spot. I mean, it's such an iconic game, and when I think of Resident Evil, this is the very first game I would think of right here. Resident Evil 1 Remake. Fantastic game. That's my top 10 favorite Resident Evil games. I want to end the video here, and I will see you all on the next one. See you then.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.